If you can remember it happening in Northeast Ohio between 1950 and 1990, you can probably find it.
I'm Rob Powers from WEWS.
And I'm Russ Mitchell from WKYC. And we've teamed up to talk to you about a project that is extremely important to us and all of us here in Northeast Ohio. The Northeast Ohio Broadcast Archives.
On December 17, 1947, WEWS signed onto the airwaves and became the very first TV station in Ohio. It was quickly followed by WKYC in 1948. And soon folks were flocking to their black and white TV sets to catch all the day's news, weather, and sports.
As the industry grew, so did our ability to capture the collection of films and video that told the story of our lives. We covered news stories, big and small, from civil rights and the Vietnam War to the St. Patrick's Day Parade, to the hottest sports competitions, and of course, the unpredictable Northeast Ohio weather. In those early days, all the action was caught on 16mm film. It was expensive, so those early newscasts were shorter, and it was quite the task to get the film processed, edited, and onto the air.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Soon came the advent of color TV, and film was replaced by the less expensive new format of videotape. And from those earliest days, astute journalists, videographers, and editors who worked in the newsroom became aware of archiving and saving those moments of history.
By the mid-1980s, both stations, busting at the seams with film and tape, decided to house their archives at John Carroll University. For more than 35 years, this extraordinary archive of Northeast Ohio history, one of the greatest historical collections in the country, was available only to the privileged few who could afford to have individual films or tapes digitized.
Just over a year ago, the university notified the stations and radio station WGAR that it could no longer house the collection. The future of the recorded history of Northeast Ohio. More than 250,000 16mm films, videos, and audio recordings were at risk of being lost forever.
Recognizing the extraordinary and irreplaceable historic and research value of the Northeast Ohio Broadcast Archives, the Cleveland Public Library stepped in and took temporary custody of the archives with the goal of finding a path forward to guarantee that this treasure trove of Northeast Ohio history is preserved, digitized, and made freely available to students, researchers, curious citizens, and filmmakers. Not only digitized and made available, but the thousands of digital files that will be created are also permanently preserved.
The archive is literally the memory of a city, a great city, whose influence courses through every seminal event that took place in the United States post-World War II. These are the stories of Northeast Ohio in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
In thousands of carefully packed boxes, you will find a cache of film, video, and audio recordings not seen or heard since they were originally created, back to the 50s. The collection is history and waiting to be rediscovered. It is people, places, and events, both familiar and forgotten. It is everything from all the footage that remains of Dorothy Fulltime's career.
Dr. King, you remember we had him on our program when he received the Nobel Prize.
To extensive footage of Dr. Martin Luther King.
We want every Negro in the city of Cleveland of voting age to be registered.
Stumping to get Carl Stokes elected as the first African-American mayor of a major American city.
I,
Carl B. Stokes.
Carl B. Stokes.
There's also the tragedy of the Huff Riots, the blizzard of 1978, and who can forget the famous Burning River?
All of us believe in Dr. Sam's innocence. We have since July the 4th, and we certainly still do.
The Sam Shepard trial, or the day Ohio's own Neil Armstrong became the first person to step foot on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We covered the Browns' championship season in 1964, the Cleveland Indians' run at the World Series back in the 90s.
Every major news story that put Northeast Ohio in the spotlight, the shooting and aftermath at Kent State University, the trial of alleged Nazi guard John Demjanjuk, and dozens more. All stories that had an impact on the lives of the people here in Northeast Ohio and beyond.
And then there's the history of broadcasters who made their name both locally and nationally. WEWS's Dorothy Fulltime was the first woman news anchor in the United States. She went on to spend nearly 40 years in local television after entering the business at the age of 55. She educated viewers daily with her insightful on-air delivery, first as a news anchor and later as an interviewer and commentator.
Why do you want a revolution?
I want a revolution that can be free, so that we can free Bobby
what?
Seale, free from racism, free from pigs. We got to eliminate all the pigs.
About pigs, you're referring to human beings or animals?
I'm referring to policemen.
Well, I've got a
No, you
shock
don't like
for
that.
you.
You don't like that.
I'm very friendly with police.
Oh, you are you? Well, I got a shock for you. I'm very friendly with the Black Panther Party.
Out! Stop the interview.
And Barbara Walters credited Dorothy for paving the way for Walters and dozens of other female news anchors.
And Northeast Ohio continues to get love on the national scene from Al Roker,
Feeling good, Double D, and Matt's doing the weather.
who spent a good chunk of the 1980s as a weather anchor at WKYC before the network drafted him to take over as the weather anchor for the Today Show, a role he continues to this day. These are only two of the many national broadcasters who began their careers right here in Northeast Ohio.
The task ahead is enormous, as all these films and videotapes are carefully cleaned, spliced, restored, digitized, and made available to the public.
But we can hardly wait to see the countless treasures that will unfold before our eyes and yours.